This video is sponsored by Sunflex UK. Is your house too small? Do you need more space? Are you thinking about building an extension to solve that problem? Stop. Maybe you don't need to build a house extension. Okay, so this might seem like an odd video to make. You might think, this guy specializes in house extensions, so why is he telling people they don't need to extend their house? Well, I've been doing this for 14 years, and I've seen lots of examples where people could get more value from their homes just by altering the internal layout. I've also seen too many homes where the extension was just stuck on and the original layout unchanged, so the house didn't flow. Yes, the house gets bigger, but it's not any better. If you need more space and are thinking about building a house extension, let me play devil's advocate to convince you to consider an alternative. A lot of homes, especially older properties, were designed with very different priorities. The layout doesn't suit modern life. Their kitchens are tiny by today's standards, and often in the wrong place. The original designers put a huge premium on having a formal drawing room, lounge, or front parlour to entertain guests. That drawing room was always at the front of the house, even if the best view was elsewhere. They regularly ignored the rear garden as a place to spend time. They have fewer and smaller bathrooms in modern homes. Their corridors are wider than today's homes, making the rooms on either side smaller, and they didn't think about storage space in the way we do today. Most homes in the UK are old. Over 10 million UK homes predate World War II, and many still have their original layout. If you own an older property, I have some tips on how to create more space without having to build a house extension. I'm based in the UK, but many of these tips will be relevant no matter where your house is. I will say that no matter where you are based, take advice from an experienced local architect before you commit to altering your home. If you would like to talk to me about your project after watching this video, you can book a consultation on the Real Life Architect website. I've put a link in the description. First up, let's talk about load-bearing walls. I've lost count of the number of homeowners who believe this is a huge issue. Now, don't get me wrong, taking down a load-bearing wall needs to be done properly, but it's an everyday task for any builder. And the cost difference between demolishing a load-bearing wall and a non-load-bearing wall is only about 40 to 50%. I made a video going into detail on the cost comparison. There's a link in the description if you want to check it out. But the short version goes like this. Knocking any wall inside your home will damage the floor, ceiling and adjacent walls, as well as destroy any electrical, wiring or plumbing pipes that are in those walls. All this costs money to put right, irrespective of whether the wall is load-bearing or not. Take it from me, it makes no sense to build a house extension just to avoid knocking down some load-bearing walls. There is so much potential space to be unlocked if you can just get over this issue. And one of the easiest ways to unlock space in any house is to reduce the amount of circulation space. I'm talking about corridors and hallways. Take this 1930s suburban house. Look at that corridor. It takes up almost 12% of the total floor area. The kitchen is small, and even though it is next to the dining room, the food has to be carried down that corridor through two doorways. It also has this tiny bedroom at the back that is too small by modern standards, all because the lounge has to be at the front. Okay, so how to improve this without building an extension? Well, this proposed layout shows elements to be demolished in red and new walls in yellow. You can see quite a few of the internal walls have to come down. The new layout has an open plan kitchen, living, dining space, and I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but bear with me. The house now has a much larger kitchen with a separate utility room. The bathroom has become 50% bigger, and the tiny bedroom is now an ensuite to the master bedroom. The entrance to the house has to be shifted along the porch, so the large window can be cut down and you walk directly into the centre of the new open plan space. Bed 3 is now at the front of the house, where the lounge used to be. It has a new doorway so that the long wall which used to be in the corridor is now fully part of the living space. If you think about it, when you demolish an internal partition, you gain more floor space, because where the wall was standing is now floor. The internal walls we removed took up some 1.5 square meters of space. Not bad when the house only had 95 square meters of internal floor area to begin with. This proposal doesn't add more bedrooms, but the living space is more open and modern. If the owners wanted more bedrooms, that could be achieved, but at the cost of reducing living space. I think this house wants to be a 3-bed property. Any more and the living area would be too cramped. If you want to take a more detailed look at the plans, I've posted them to my Instagram and put a link in the description. So, reducing circulation space makes a huge difference. It unlocks significant amounts of internal space for things like living and bedrooms, more bathrooms or storage. But what other tricks can we pull to get more space? Well, here are two good ones, and they aren't as dramatic as using circulation space, but they can be worthwhile if your home has some older features, like chimneys. Take a look at this floor plan of a house from the 1960s. It has a prominent chimney in the middle of the living space. This thing takes up more than 1 square meter of floor space. That's about 1% of the overall area of the building. I've been in a lot of homes over the years, and very few people still use traditional fireplaces. If you have a redundant chimney in a wall between two rooms, it can be demolished. It's a bit more challenging than taking down a wall, but it's a fairly common procedure. Just make sure your builder has a good roofer to close up the hole where the chimney used to be. Another tip to get more space is to steal it from the external wall. This isn't worthwhile if your home has a typical brick cavity wall construction. Those walls are only about 30 centimeters or 1 foot thick. But if your home has a traditional stone wall, these can be 45 or even 60 centimeters thick. That's 18 inches to 2 feet. To do this properly, you need to consider creating a large glazed opening, like a patio door. If you take down a wide section of that thick external wall, then fit modern aluminium glazing close to the outer surface, you will gain all that space which used to be where the thick stone wall stood. Take a look at this house from the 1800s. It has solid stone external walls that are 70 centimeters thick. Let's see how much extra space we could get by forming a wide patio door in this drawing room. As before, the dashed red lines show what has been demolished. The new patio doors would sit much further forward, closer to the outside, and this frees up about 2.3 extra square meters, increasing the floor area of that drawing room by almost 10%. This has the added benefit of introducing more natural light into the space. If you're thinking about aluminium frame doors, then you should consider the sponsor of today's video. Sunflex UK design and manufacture aluminium doors and windows. I made this video showing how their products enhanced this project of mine. Sunflex offer a great balance between cost and quality, and I have used them to enhance several of my designs. Check out the video. I put a link up here and also in the description. You might be wondering why I haven't mentioned loft conversions. The short answer is that these usually cost more and deliver less space than most people assume. If you can do one, great, but most attics aren't big enough. I made a video explaining all the problems that need to be solved in order to create a successful loft conversion. Check out the link in the description. Of course, the big question is how much would an internal alteration cost? I've made videos discussing the cost of house extension projects in detail, and I've given square meter rates for that kind of project. Unfortunately, square meter calculations do not work when pricing internal alterations to existing buildings. The only way to get an accurate price for this kind of work is to itemize each element of the job and have a contractor price them individually. The final thing to keep in mind if you are going to alter an older property is that it might be listed or in a conservation area. If your property is a flat rather than a house, it's still possible to create more space by altering the internal layout. I did just that with this property and the end result looks amazing. But with flats, there are added complications with upstairs neighbours, and the insurance engineers, contractors and architects required to carry out such work is expensive. When people need to change their homes, it's usually to get more bedrooms or more living space. A lot of homes can achieve this purely by altering the internal layout, but if you need more bedrooms and more living space, it's unlikely to be possible without building an extension. So there you have it, my case for altering the layout rather than extending your house. It's something you should seriously consider. But as I said at the beginning, always take advice from an experienced local architect as early as possible. And if you would like to discuss your project with me, there's a link to the Real Life Architect website in the description. My name is Neil, and I am a real life architect in the UK. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like, it really helps the channel. I regularly make videos about the reality of altering and extending private homes, as well as discussing issues affecting the architecture profession and construction industry. If you like the sound of that, please subscribe to the channel.